All right, here's my Dax125. Let's look at the mileage here. 1961, so just shy of 2,000 miles. So basically, this is the 2,000 mile review, I guess you could say. So I'm starting to get used to this bike, as far as riding it and how it feels and stuff. Yeah. Comfort-wise, I still, if you watch my videos on this, I talked about this before, so I won't talk about too much of the stuff that I talked about before. I'll talk about stuff that's like come to my attention or I figured out now that I have more miles on it. So let's look at the shifter. So the shifter, if you try to shift fast, doesn't matter if you're going up or down. If you try to shift fast, it's kind of clunky, kind of jerky. But you slow down the shift a little bit, just slow down and just a little smoother, smooth on, smooth off. It shifts surprisingly really smooth. It feels smooth, like you have a clutch, pretty much, more or less, almost. That's one. Other thing with this, if you look at this compared to the Monkey, you see that the wheelbase, I believe it's like somewhere around maybe 2 inches or so longer, I think, somewhere around there. So a little bit longer. So on the Monkey, where you sit, you're basically sitting pretty much right above the rear shock. On this bike, you don't. And the passenger definitely sits above it. But on this bike, I mostly sit right in the middle, more or less in the middle. So I'm just ahead of the shock. I guess the back of my butt is probably about right here. Right, so right in front of the shock, and my crotch is probably about right here somewhere. Right, so somewhere in this middle range of the seat. So sitting like that, for my leg, the length of my leg, I have a 30-inch inseam. So when I sit pretty much in the middle, I could shift. I could downshift with my toe and upshift with my heel, right here, just fine. If I try to upshift with my toe, my lower leg, my ankle is at an awkward angle, so it's kind of hard to do that. But if I shift my weight forward towards the front half, then I could shift at the toe up and down, and I can't shift with my heel down because the angle of my ankle changes. So normally, when I'm relaxed, I sit somewhere in the middle. But the past week or so, I've been experimenting with my shift on the seat, with my balance, with my the weight, the balance of the weight. So as I sit more forward, if you sit more forward in the seat, you're more centered on the bike, and it actually feels better. It feels more balanced. So if I actually try to sit further back, it feels really weird. The bike feels weird. It handles weird. The front end kind of feels kind of light and kind of wandering a little bit. But when I shift forward, it actually stabilizes. Like for example, when I'm going downhill, just basically more or less almost at the rev limiter, 65 or so more. If I sit in the middle, the front end gets kind of light, and it's not the handlebar doesn't shake, but it kind of does this a little bit, like it wants to wobble, like it wants to do that death shake. But if I shift my weight forward into the seat, that basically stops. It doesn't completely stop. It still does it a little bit, but it doesn't feel light and wanting to wander. It just stays more solid, more stable. It still moves around a little bit, and I think that just has to do with the geometry at the front. The rake and the trail of the front end. So when I sit forward, if I'm in the twisties, in the canyons, and I'm carving it up in the twisties, going fast, it doesn't matter if I'm going uphill or downhill. I'm going twisty a lot. Riding aggressively, spirited pace. I would slide all the way up to the front. Let's actually let's look at how I sit. So if I sit centered, you see how much space I have here. Okay, how much space I have here. Basically, you know, it's about to my crotch. You know, it's at the length. The rear is similar, right? The rear is kind of similar. Something like this. But if I'm riding spiritly, I will actually go a little bit further up like so. I still see a little bit here, and if I wanted to go really fast, I would like sit all the way up until, you know, I can't really see this nub anymore. When I'm like this, I could, you know, I'm sort of in this sport riding position where the pegs are basically pretty much right below me, almost not quite below me, but pretty close to being below me. Instead of if I sit further back, the pegs are like feels like mid controls instead of, you know, instead of being below me, it feels like mid controls. So sitting more forward, that weight shift forward, that really centers me. And when I do the carve in the canyons, it feels so much better. It feels so much more stable, and you know, the front end doesn't feel sketchy. It doesn't feel like light, or it doesn't feel like the, you know. Also, when you shift forward, you put more weight in the front, so that actually gives you more traction. So it feels so much better that way. So yeah, so it's more stable in the front when I shift my weight forward. So, but when I do that, it does feel, you know, the front end, the handlebar feels kind of cramped, and actually my legs feel kind of cramped too when you have that mid control feel. Your legs feels more roomy, whereas when it's right below you, it feels a little bit more cramped. Let's see what else with this bike that I noticed. Oh, also, if you look at my tires. So basically 2,000 miles, I'm at the wear bar already in the center. Right, you see it's almost, you know, it's almost done right here. So here's at the wear bar right here. Let's see if I go further to other bars. Let's see how much. This one shows a little bit more tread right there, and that's normal for tires. And this one shows a little bit more tread. You know, a tire is not perfectly, you know, as far as like its tread and wears and stuff, and how round it is. It's not perfectly round. Some spots seem to like wear a little bit slightly more than the others. But anyways, so that's you know, just shy of 2,000 miles. Other thing I noticed with this bike is the spark plug. You know, on like the Monkey, at least my 2019 Monkey, the spark plug, there's a normal spark plug, and there's a high-speed spark plug. So a high-speed spark plug is also for like hot weather. If you're like in, you know, Phoenix or Florida or something like that, any hot weather where the engine gets hotter, it runs, you know, that high-speed plug, hot weather plug, runs a little bit cooler. Let the engine runs a little bit cooler. So on the Monkey it has that, but this bike doesn't have that. This bike is just one plug only. It just says whatever. It just says normal. It doesn't say like high speed. But the interesting thing about that is that this spark plug is the same spark plug as the Monkey's high speed spark plug. So that's interesting. I find that to be interesting. Let's see what else. I need to adjust the clutch, right? The auto clutch right here. So I'm gonna do a video on that. I think I have a video on that on the Super Cub and the Trail as well, because both of those are centrifugal clutch, right? Auto clutch. So anyways, so I need to do that adjustment. I need to change the oil filter. I have a whole bunch of oil filters. So I need to change that. I haven't changed that yet. It's, you know, when I did the break-in oil change, I didn't change the oil filter. Let's see, what else do I need to do? And obviously clean and lube the chain. I was gonna put on a new chain, but I decided not to. I'm just gonna leave this chain. You know, the stock factory chains, they don't last very long. These mini bikes, these Honda mini bikes, their chain lasts about, I think only about 7,000 miles. When you get to about 7,000 miles, they're pretty much fully stretched out. It's like, you know, you don't have much adjustment to them anymore. So you know, so I'll probably have another 5,000 miles to go. So I'm gonna basically use the full life before I actually put a new chain. But the funny thing about that is that even though the chain wears out real fast, the sprockets. I don't know about this bike per se, but on my other bikes, my Super Cub, my Monkey, whatever, on my other mini bikes, my Honda mini bikes, the chains wear out really fast, at around 7,000 miles, but the sprockets don't. The sprocket are still really good. So you can actually just throw a new chain on there with the old sprockets, and it's fine. Normally on bikes, you don't want to do that. You want to change them all three, the front and rear sprocket and the chain at the same time. But most bikes, those things only last about 20,000 miles. But this thing, the chain is only 7,000 miles. So I think that's probably why the sprockets are not that worn out, because it's only 7,000 miles. Let's see what else about this bike. So it feels, now that it has 2,000 miles, the engine feels completely broken in. It's felt broken in for the last 5,000 miles. Ever since about 1,500 miles, the engine's felt broken in. It feels, it doesn't have that tight brand new feeling anymore. But at the same time, it feels kind of loose, right? But at the same time, it feels strong. When it's brand new and it's still kind of tight and it hasn't broken in yet, it's still not fully, the power is not fully there yet. Now I feel the power is fully there, so it's good there. Let's see what else about this. I think that's it. I think from the last time, I'm not sure, the last time I did the review, since then I put on this saddle rack here for extra carrying capacity, like when I need it. Let's see, what else do I have to say with this? I'm not sure exactly how much mileage I'm getting, because I have not filled up from a gas station yet. I've only, because I get my gas at Costco, so when I fill gas for the car, I bring I bring my 5-gallon jug with me, and I fill up the jug, and with the jug I fill up the bike. So I don't have the measurement on how much gas mileage I'm getting, but I'm definitely getting like, for example, today I rode I think, let's see, where am I at again? Today I rode 100 miles. Yeah, 100 miles. I just got home from work right now. I rode 100 miles. And I still have gas in my blinker. The thing didn't go on. So that way I think I'm at 2 bars. Yeah, I'm at 2 bars, right? And that's because when I fill this up, well, there's different levels where you can fill it up. Let's say, for example, if you fill up to where that bar is inside the gas tank, you fill up to that bar only, or just above that bar. If I do 100 miles, the thing will be at the last bar, and that last bar will be blinking. But the last this past week, basically, I've been filling up past that bar. If you look at where the bar is, where it's connected, that little angle that comes up like that. So I fill it past that. I fill it up past that, a little past that, probably another, I don't know, 5, maybe even 10 millimeters past that. And that's basically where it's showing my mileage with some life left. So you actually get quite a bit of extra miles, which is filling up a little bit more. You definitely could get more than 100 miles. And they say this thing has a 1-gallon tank, and I know the mileage number is something like something ridiculous, like 150 or something like that. But that's if you're doing like 25. I never do that. When I ride these mini bikes, I ride them wide open. There's no putting around. I ride them wide open, and I'm almost 90% of the time or so, or close to that, I'm in the twisties. I'm in the mountains, so I'm like wide open, hard throttle the whole time. Coming out from corners, whatever, full throttle the whole time. I'm not too hard on the brakes because this bike's not fast enough to require it to be that hard on the brakes. So I'm pretty light on the brakes. But whatever the case, I'm like always wide open on this thing, and I get 100 miles or more and with that higher increased level, it still shows some bars left. So take it that as you will. I think when I start taking this thing on road trips and actually start using a gas station, I will keep track of how much I fill up versus how much miles I'm getting. So and I'll report back on that. Let me see what else with the thing. Lately I've been lazy with the chain. Normally I would when I lube the chain, I would clean the chain first with WD-40, wipe it clean. Then I put lube. But lately I just been straight up spraying lube straight on there without wiping the chain clean. And I've been using an actual chain cleaner. In the past, I've pretty much almost always used gear oil. I use high-powered gear oil, right? Differential oil, right? 7580 or 7590, whatever it is. I've always used that in the past. But on this, so far, I've used actual motorcycle chain oil. And it's different. It's kind of, motorcycle chain oil, at least the stuff that I've used so far, it's more similar to chainsaw bar oil. If you ever use a chainsaw bar oil, it's very tacky. So that motorcycle chain oil is actually like that too. It's tacky. It's not quite as tacky as a chainsaw oil, but chainsaw bar oil. But you can see you see the tackiness, and it has those stringers. You put it. When you spin this thing, you see there's films of string forming. That's the tackiness. Let's see what else. I think that's about it. So I'm at 2000. I'm gonna clean the chain, clean and lube the chain. I'm gonna check the valves, change the oil, adjust my clutch, or check my clutch if it needs adjustment. Change the oil filter. I've been wanting to order some air filters, but because this bike's still new, there aren't any air filters available, at least not in the US anyways, at least that I found. I need to start looking more so I want to get a couple extra air filters. I think the air filters are good for like 7,000 miles or 7,500 miles or something like that, I believe is what Honda says. So I'll be good for a while. I'll be good for a while, but I'd like to get a couple extra of the air filters. Yeah, I think that's it. So that's the update on the bike. 2,000 miles. Thanks for watching. All right, here's my Dax125. I want to show you guys. Put on my this tire I have right here. This tire is from the Honda Monkey, the front tire. And if you know the Honda Monkey, they use 80 profile. So instead of 120/70, it's 120/80, and the rear tire is 130/80. So it's a little bit taller. So if I compare this 120/80 to the Dax original size tire in the rear, which is 130/70, this 80 profile is actually, even though it's narrower by 10 millimeters, but the height actually, looking at the numbers, I don't know what the actual tires are if you put them side to side, because I didn't do that. I should have done that, but I didn't. But if you do the math on the numbers, this 120/80, it's 5 millimeters taller on the profile here. So overall diameter, it's 10 millimeters taller. So that's almost half an inch. And you're thinking, 5 millimeters, that's, 5 millimeters is barely like that much. So that's like the difference between, that's the difference between a tire that's bald and a tire that has new threads, basically. New threads is about 5 millimeters. And if it's bald, there you go. So even though it doesn't seem like that much of a difference, I just took this thing on the ride this afternoon, and man, it's enough to, enough of a difference that it's noticeable. So for example, when I'm going up some of my local back roads on a steep climb, I have to drop it into second to be able to make it up. If I put it into third, I will just keep on losing speed, and it just can't, it can't hang up with third gear. But if I drop into second, it's fine. But at the same time, when I'm in second, going up those steep hills, it's able to rev up and get up to where I want to shift to third. It's revving high enough where I'm like, okay, I got to shift. I can't go any faster. and because the engine is revving really high. But if I shift to third, it's just too tall in third, and I lose speed and I drop back down to then I have to just drop back to second. The cool thing with this tire, because it's just that marginally much, that marginal difference in being larger, basically meaning it's geared slightly taller. When I'm in second, I could actually kind of stay in second for a little bit longer, and it's not revving quite as high, and that's enough of a difference to notice. Obviously I can't go into third because third is even taller, but keep me in second. It doesn't rev as high as it did with the original size tire. So I'm really digging this size. So I'm thinking in the future, once this monkey tire wears out, when I get a replacement, I'm gonna stick with the 120/80, even though it's narrower than the factory 130. Realistically, you don't need that much. You don't need that much width. And I'm not sure, but I think, even though it's taller this way, but it's wider this way, I think this 120/80 it feels like it's a little bit lighter, maybe. But I'm not, you don't know really. You can't really compare that until you have two identical tires that are of different size. So I mean, the tire model. So whatever this tire model, let's say if there was a 120. A 130/70 version of this 120/80/12, or whatever tire this is, then that's a fair comparison. But because it's a completely different brand, well, it's actually, no, it's not a different brand. They're both V rubber, but completely different models, so you can't really compare that in that regards, because that wouldn't be a fair comparison. But yeah, I'm definitely digging this size tire though. I can see, let's see, I mean, it's worn out from being a front tire, and I'm not sure if this wears from being the front tire or from being a rear tire. But whatever the case, you can see the wear. There's plenty of space here left. That's like, I'm gonna say that's about 3/4 of an inch. Not quite an inch, but probably about 3/4 of an inch of chicken strip left. So it's plenty of meat left. It's a little bit tall, the angle here is not as like this, right? So it's more steep, the slope here, versus being out like that. But realistically, this is not a sports bike, and you're not leaning that much. Actually, speaking of leaning, just this ride, this is the first time ever. Actually, let me double check it. Make sure it's actually true and it's not just me. No, actually, maybe it's not. Well, actually, it is. You feel it. So here, this is the filler. Let's see, actually, you guys can see that or not? Not sure you guys can see that. Anyways, I felt like I buzzed. I buzzed something. I'm not sure what I buzzed. But I felt something get buzzed on today's ride on one of the corners. I could have swore it was the filler on the foot peg right there. But I don't know, I didn't really feel anything. Let's see this side. This side feels that smooth. Can't even get my eyes down in there because it feels the same. It feels the same on this side. Anyways. Yeah, so this angle here, you don't really, considering what this bike is, you don't really need that width, realistically speaking. It's mainly more for looks, I think. But with that said, I think this rear rim is slightly wider than the front rim, I believe. It's a little bit wider, maybe half an inch wider, I'm thinking. I know it says it on the brim, it says it, but I'm stuck in there, I can't see anything. Let's see if I can see anything. No, I can't see anything. Actually, no, I can see right up there. It says 3.5. Right up in here. I can see it says 3.5 DOT, whatever. So I think the front rim is probably only 3" it's my guess. So yeah, so I think it's a half an inch difference between the front rim and rear rim. but I like the the taller, slightly taller. Unfortunately, if you look up the size, the 80 profile for front and rear, for the monkey basically, they all come with these dual sport type tires and not like street tires. I prefer street bike tires instead of a dual sport type tire. Just because I'm realistically I never ride these bikes in the dirt, so there's no reason to have this type of tire. I want more. I want a more street focused tire instead of a dual sport where it's like this tire. I think this is not even a 50-50 tire. This is probably like a 70-80, or excuse me, 70-30 or 80-20. 70 or 80% street and 20 or 30% dirt. So I don't even want that much. I'd rather have it 100% street. Yeah. Anyways, that's about it. I think that's the only update I have. Actually, you know what? One more thing. I put on this mesh thing I got from I don't know what brand this is. I can't remember where I got this. I think I got this. Was this on eBay? No, excuse me. On Amazon maybe. Can't remember now. I bought this a few years ago. And it works really well. On this bike, it works really well. I have it. I actually have the same one on my CRF 300 Rally, and it feels better on this bike than it does on the CRF for sure. It's a mesh, and it's not just a mesh, but it's like it has depth to it. It has quite a bit of depth to it because there's like 2 layers. There's this layer and there's this other layer underneath. So it easily has at least half an inch of thickness. But when you sit on it, obviously it's going to be less. But whatever the case, these mesh things, it does 2 things. One, it keeps you cooler because there's airflow. So that's one. And the other thing is that because of that airflow, that ventilation, it keeps you drier. So on a hot day, if you sat straight on this, there's no ventilation. So whatever sits on your ass sits on here, it gets all sweaty and it becomes really uncomfortable, right? Gets itchy and such. But with this ventilation, it actually airs out and it works really well. Keeps you cooler and drier. And how do I know? Because I've used one of these in the rain before, and my bottom got all wet, right? And when I was going through, and the air flew through there because my butt was all wet and being cold, not summertime. With the airflow through, my bottom actually started getting chilled. I actually started getting in the wind chill, the evaporative cooling wind chill. I was like, holy cow, this thing was like, my ass was like freezing. I could feel it, I could feel that breeze. So I know this thing works really well. Again, I have no idea. I can't remember where I got this thing. I think I got it from Amazon. Meso Rock, whatever brand that is. Again, it's some Chinese brand, I think, from China. Anyways, I think that's the only update I have with this bike. Oh, one more thing. So I had that saddle rack. So I put on I zip tied on this tire just to see how it holds up to the weight and such, and it held really well. It's completely solid, no movement at all. Seems like the weight's not a big deal. I can't remember what the company that makes that rack says what the load limit is. Because these racks, the low limit is actually pretty low. Wherever they say, like for example, this rear rack right here, this Takigawa rear rack, I think they said the low limit on this thing is like maybe 20 pounds. That's pretty low. That's not high at all. And I think this side rack right here, the saddle rack, is something like 10 pounds or maybe even less than 10 pounds. Whatever the case, it was pretty solid. I mean, but it was only one ride. It was a 40 mile ride through the mountains, tight twisty mountains. So I was riding pretty fast, and it felt fine. Right, so that's the update I have right now. Oh, one other thing. So remember, this bike has 2,000 miles, or on my last video, it had just under 2,000 miles. Now it has just over 2,000 miles. So I checked the valves again. The last time I checked the valve was probably about 1,000 miles ago. The intake was fine. The intake was perfect, but the exhaust was actually a thousandth on the loose side. So I tightened up the exhaust a thousandth of an inch. Otherwise, everything else is still same old. It's feeling good now. It's feeling really broken in, loosened up. Now that I got used to the shifting, the key to the shifting and making it smooth is to not do real fast, and just basically kind of take it easy and slowly and smoothly upshift and downshift on the the heel or the toe, and it changes gears surprisingly really smooth. Not quite as smooth as a hand clutch, but pretty close. Yeah, so far I'm digging this bike. It's pretty good. All right, thanks for watching.